Let's start with Maryland coach Kevin Willard. He had his famous his famous press conference. I would say that was a once-a-decade NCAA tournament press conference.
Oh, yeah.
I've sat at a lot of NCAA tournament press conferences over the years. I can assure you, none of them I was not in Seattle for it, but none of them sounded like the clips that emerged from there. 2 wins by Maryland this weekend over Grand Canyon and Colorado State, put them in the Sweet 16, and give Kevin Willard a ton of leverage for both this job and Villanova, where I would say at this point he's the perceived favorite, but not necessarily the cemented favorite to replace Kyle Neptune. Walk us through a little bit of, and it adds a week of drama, right? Maryland's going to try to hustle. It gives Maryland some time to also get him. Just walk us through a little bit of Kevin Willard's strange week and what you see going forward.
Yeah, as soon as those Kevin Willard quotes and that press conference hit social media, it spread throughout media, coaching industry, everyone kind of wondering what's Willard's end game here. Is he doing it to get more leverage at Maryland? He essentially announced that his AD was leaving. It had leaked
really
out.
Took some wind out of my scoop, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a little annoying.
He stole it from you. And so it was, is he putting pressure on Maryland? Is he going to Villanova? And this comes on the heels of, maybe a week ago, reports come out that he's reached an extension or on the verge of an extension with Maryland, which, as far as you and I know, that is not as far down the road as initially indicated.
Doesn't appear to be.
Right. And so people are wondering what his end game here is. And, now we're gonna have to wait an extra few days to really find out where he's going to end up next season, whether it's at Maryland with a new deal and evidently a new AD and a new, more money into the program, whatever he's looking for that he's trying to get, or is he going to be at Villanova to replace Kyle Neptune? Now, if he says no, or if he's not going to go to Villanova, then where do they turn from there? And so if it's Porter Moser, I think we're going to end up getting, kind of a second wave of the carousel. It seems to be kind of winding down a little bit now. I think Ben McCollum's the perceived favorite at Iowa. Nico Medved's the perceived favorite at Minnesota. So things are winding down, and Sean Miller is the target of Texas's search. So it seems to be winding down a bit. But if Moser ends up leaving Oklahoma, that opens an SEC job, and as we know, SEC jobs are coveted by a lot of people, and so that could bring a second wave of the carousel and bring us into the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 with another string of jobs, potential dominoes ready to fall.
Well, that's a good transition to that historic, storied SEC job, Texas, which after 1 year in the league, fired Coach Rodney Terry after making the NCAA tournament. That was not at all unexpected. That unfolded on Sunday afternoon. Jeff, as we tape this Sunday night, Sean Miller has not signed his contract yet to be the next coach at Texas, but is widely expected to do so. We've reported that he's the target there. That's where this thing seems to be headed. Sean Miller just has kind of lived a fascinating coaching life, right? Like he was at Xavier, brought them to the Elite 8, unprecedented heights, was a very good coach at Arizona, won, I think, 4 and shared another Pac-12s, made 3 Elite 8s there. I mean, talking about a guy who knocked on the door a whole bunch and never quite busted through to the Final Four. He's certainly in that short list of conversations for best college coaches who've never reached the Final Four. And he joins like a very crowded SEC field, right, of like really accomplished, established coaches. Another great coach in the SEC. How do you see that unfolding there in Austin for the Sean Miller era?
The interesting part is that we could have been having this conversation about him 2 years ago, when Rodney Terry got promoted to the full-time job. Texas beat Xavier in the Sweet 16 in that 2023 NCAA tournament. Had Xavier won that game, Sean Miller might have been the head coach at Texas 2 weeks later. So that's kind of an interesting wrinkle in all this. Crystal Conte's clearly done his legwork on Sean Miller. It's an interesting hire. I mean, he doesn't fit the SEC footprint in terms of where he's from and places he spent time at. But as he should, when he went from Xavier to Arizona, I mean, he was a guy that, Pittsburgh native, spent most of his time in that area, the Midwest, Pittsburgh. And then he went to Arizona and was awesome. And so I don't really have any concerns about his ability to coach outside of his, regional comfort zone. And as we saw, Maryland went after him back when he Took the Arizona job. He's a really good ball coach. He's going to win games. He's proven he can recruit. He's proven he can work the portal. I think, to me, the thing about him, and I spoke to him about this his first year back at Xavier in 2022-23, he changed his whole style of coaching. A lot more wide open, a lot more threes, just more free flowing. In Arizona, it was, we're going to defend, we're going to play kind of pack line and really grind the game down. He said his year off, or I guess he had 2 years off. No, it was 1 year. Sorry. 1 year off. He said he watched a ton of basketball and he realized it's a lot more fun watching and coaching a more free flowing, 3-point happy, fast paced team. And you don't really get that sort of self awareness and from coaches. They're kind of stick with what they know. And he said, I'm changing my whole style. He came back and his Xavier teams have played way faster and shot way more threes than any of his Arizona teams did.
Yeah. And look, in Austin, you're competing not only for the eyes of your students, but you're competing against concerts, you're competing against Sixth Street, you're competing against like elite, like that's your competition for the consumer dollar. So you need to have a free an exciting product. All right. Anything else spinning on the old carousel, Jeff, that we should walk through here? We have not talked about Darian DeVries going to Indiana. Obviously, Indiana people care about basketball a little bit. Were you surprised that's where they landed, and how do you think he'll do?
Once you kind of come to terms with the fact, and this is something that has been one of the big talking points at the carousel, is that schools are not paying huge buyouts to get coaches out of contracts. Now, DeVries is actually, when you factor in a couple other things, it's north of $6 million, I think.
Yeah. They had to pay West Virginia what West Virginia paid Drake, which is over $1 million.
And
some like moving expenses
is a lot in a basketball world. But when you compare it to what some of these other candidates, the Tommy Lloyds and the Todd Goldens and the Mick Cronins, Dennis Gate, all these guys are in the 10, 12, 15, more than that range. And once you kind of come to terms with that, Indiana was not going to pay that money to buy somebody else out of their contract. DeVries was a consistent winner at Drake. He had West Virginia on the precipice of the NCAA tournament. I can argue that they were one of the bigger snubs in recent memory. So, and he's going to bring his son with him, Tucker, who was a 2-time Missouri Valley Player of the Year. So he's going to have some pieces to work with in Indiana. And I just think that, he's a proven winner in that Midwest region. He did a good job. He turned West Virginia around really quickly. He worked the portal really, really well. Now he'll have more money to spend in the portal, more money to spend on his roster. And I do think that in terms of X's and O's and coaching and going there to win games, I think it was a good hire. It's not splashy. It's not maybe as big a big name as some Indiana fans wanted, but I think his track record in recent years, at least, proves that he should be able to turn that place around pretty quickly.
Let's put a bow on this pod and this conversation with our friend, Will Wade. I'm going to give my take on Will Wade to NC State. Thank God the ACC gets an interesting coach, because they have some good coaches. Don't get me wrong. Brad Burrows is an excellent coach. John Shire has really proven himself to be a high-end coach this year. I would not say the ACC has a lot of very interesting coaches. A lot of compelling characters, I think, is probably a better term than that.
He's gonna bring some juice to that job.
He'll bring some spice. Because Will Wade is not afraid to stir the pot, and he is not afraid to. First of all, he'll put together a good roster, right? Like McNeese ran an 18-2 ACC team off the court in the first half of that game. Now, credit Clemson for coming back and all that stuff, but McNeese, Will Wade will put together a talented roster, and I think having the NC State coach, to me, should always have a little bit of spice to him, right? Yeah. Like, you are the foil of like fabled Carolina and gilded Duke, and you can, if you are just kind of like the guy waving his middle finger up at both of them, it just works better. I think it's just in terms of like triangle dynamics, and like if Will Wade opens the season in the ACC at Carolina on January 4th. I'm going to be like, I'm going to watch that game, because like, what is he going to do? What is he going to say? Like, how is he going to get his team? So I'm excited for the ACC getting a little bit of an octane shot.
Yeah, the league needed it. As we said, only one team in the second round. That's tough. But he's gonna be ready to punch upward at Duke and UNC, and NC State will be. To be honest, like they're going to be probably the most fascinating ACC team in the offseason and going into next year. I'm like you said, if they're playing Carolina, you're watching that game, whether it's the first game of the ACC season or whether it's a busy Wednesday night. Like you're going to be watching NC State just to see how Will Wade does there, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm not saying Jay Lucas and Luke Laux were not good hires in the ACC, but the ACC needed, like you said, a personality boost, and Will Wade will do that.